Assalamu alaikum, Musawir here. In this video, we will learn how to write tests in Flutter applications. There are three types of testing in Flutter: unit, widget, and integration. But in this video, we will write unit and widget tests only. Integration testing is part of our next video. I have created a new project and I am running this app just to see if everything is working fine. We will write unit test and widget test for this default Flutter application, and for that we have to do a little bit of code refactoring. Let's create model folder under lib and then create a counter class in it. Counter class will have counter variable and increment function. Now create homepage class under lib and then cut all the my homepage class code from main file and paste in here. And don't forget to import my homepage class in main file. Remove this counter variable and increment counter function from here and create counter class instance. And now replace this counter variable with counter dot value, and instead of increment function we will call counter dot increment, and after that we have to call set state as well. We are done with our code refactoring part, and before moving forward, let's once again run the app and see if everything is working okay. App is working fine, so let's move toward testing now. First of all, remove this default widget underscore test file. Now create models folder under test and then counter underscore test file in it. Underscore test is very important here because it is a keyword which is used by a Flutter testing framework to recognize test files. Just like any other program, our test file need main function, and don't forget to import flutter underscore test file. From the test file which we have just imported, we can use this test function. It take multiple parameters, but these two are required, and for now we will use only these two, and in our future video we will explore the other ones as well. In the description parameter, we have to provide human readable description of the test, and it is very important that our description should be easily understandable and it should clearly tell the purpose of the test. The second parameter is a callback function where we write our unit test logic. So here is our first test case where we want to test a default counter value. Within curly brackets we have our test implementation. So we simply created our counter class object here, and then on the next line we have an expect function. So expect function take two parameters, and the first one is the actual value and the second one is the matcher, which is the expected outcome for the actual value. So if two values are the same, then the test will pass. Otherwise, expect throw an error and fail the test case. Now let's run this test case. As you can see in the debug console, the first test case passed successfully. Now let's change our matcher value from 0 to 1 and run this test case again. Our test case should fail this time. As you can see, our test case throw an error, and if you see in the debug console, it shows our expected value is 1 but the actual value is 0. Now let's add and run another test case for increment function. We can also create group, so let's create counter group and put both test case in it. And now if I run this group, it will execute both the test cases. That is all for the unit test. In this video, I have only covered the basic test cases, but in future videos, we'll see how to test more complex classes like block or view model, and how to generate and use mock in unit tests. Now for widget testing, let's create homepage test class. Let's create a function which return my home page wrapped in material app. For testing widget, we have test widget function from Flutter test framework. Here we have to provide the description of the test, also implement the callback function, and callback function provide us the widget tester instance which allows us to interact with and test our widgets. First of all, we have to call the pump widget function. It renders the UI from the given widget. In this line, we are finding the floating action button by its type, and then we are verifying that only one widget should be there. and then we are verifying the add icon button. By default count value should be 0, so in this line we are verifying that. And here we are using tap function to tap on the floating action button. Then we have to call this pump function. It basically triggers a frame that comes after the button is being pressed. Now because we have tabbed floating action button, so the counter value should be 1. So in this line we are just verifying that. Now let's run this test case. As you can see, our test case passed successfully. Now let's change our final counter value from 1 to 0. And this time our test case should fail. We can run widget test in simulator as well, so let's try that. It was very fast. I don't think you were able to see it. So here I have added some delays before and after button tap. Now let's run this again. That is all for this video. I hope it helps you to get the basic understanding of unit and widget testing. And in the future videos, I will cover more on this topic, and I will cover the integration testing as well. You can get this code from GitHub repo. Link is in the description below.